Thanks again for being here, everybody. It's great to see some familiar faces and some new faces. My name is Luke Hansen. I use he, him pronouns. I live in Ward 3 in St. Paul in the Highland neighborhood. My wife and I were fortunate enough to buy a house about 10 months ago now. And I've been on the board for maybe a year and a half with Sustain. Liz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I want to welcome everybody. My name is Elizabeth Wayful. I also live in Ward 3 and I am co-chair with Luke and the longest serving member of the board. I will be stepping down at the end of the month. I think leadership turnover is good. And we've got some great people who will be staying on the board, but very excited that we've got a number of you interested in possibly participating to sort of carry on the legacy of an organization that's done some really great work for the last, actually, it's been like 6-7 years now. So thank you everybody for joining us. And then I think we were going to have the rest of the board introduce themselves. I can't see everybody, but Melissa and Melanie, do you both want to introduce yourselves? And then we're going to move to everybody else. Why don't we, Luke, can we hide the screen, that slide while we're doing this?
Yeah.
Thanks. Melanie or Melissa, your choice.
Go for it, Melanie.
Oh, Karen's here too. Sorry, Karen. Good to see you.
Hi, I'm Melanie Day. I've lived in St. Paul since the year 2000. And from 2000 until roughly mid of 2021, I was a homeowner in the West 7th neighborhood, Ward 2. And I currently live in Ward 3. And I am the treasurer of this organization. And I will be setting up a bank account pretty soon. I'll maybe hand it over to you, Melissa.
Absolutely. Hi, Melissa Wenzel, she, her pronouns as well. I live in Southeast St. Paul, Ward 7, and currently the only board member east of downtown 35E. And I'm also one of the newest board members. I'm not new to the organization. I had actually co-advocated for organized trash collection, something I joke that I'll never get those hours spent to fight for big trash or fight against big trash. I forget now which at this point, but I've been a sustainability advocate almost all of my adult life, as well as not by choice, my childhood as well. And I'm very happy to be a part of this board and really welcome potential new members. Karen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Allen. I'm in Ward 4 in the Midway neighborhood. I joined at this exact same time last year. I've also lived in Summit University and in the Como Park neighborhood. And I just love St. Paul and I want to have more neighbors. And so I'm excited to see all these new faces to help us make neighbors possible.
I think that's it.
We'd love to have introductions for everyone else. Love to know who's with us tonight. I think if you all don't mind, we can do it through mutual invitation so that, like, if you're not ready to introduce yourself right away, you can say, yeah, I'll take a pass, and then someone else can go. So I'll start us off. Jessica, would you mind introducing yourself? I invite you to do that.
Hi, I'm Jessica Jankowitz. I live currently in Ward 3. So I've got a lot of neighbors here, Highland Park neighborhood. I've lived in St. Paul since 2005. Previously the Crocus Hill neighborhood, the Selby-Dale area, and then lived for a few years actually in the North End, right at Rice and Larpenter. And so now I'm in Highland Park. I haven't had an official role in Sustain St. Paul, but I've been kind of a member of the Facebook group from back when it was Sustain Ward 3 and advocating for the forward site development. So I'm interested to get more involved and see what I can do.
Thanks for being here, Jessica. Mm-hmm. Rebecca, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi there, my name is Rebecca Nelson. I've been in St. Paul my whole entire life. I live in the Payne Phelan neighborhood, which is Ward 6. I am currently the board chair of District 5, the Payne Family Community Council, and the board chair of the Dayton Bluff District 4 Community Council. I just on here because I want to check it out again. I'm, my whole, everything I do is connected. So I just want to make sure that I have all the connections and things like that. I did notice that the majority of everybody was not from this area. And I know that that's something that needs to be changed. But a lot of the people that are from this area on my side of town here, our board meetings for the Payne Family Community Council are on the same night as your board meeting. But anyway, just trying to see if I can be a part of it in any way or join in somehow. So thank you.
And I want to just, before we move on to the next person, because I think that's a really good point, Rebecca. The time of the board meetings is actually set each year by the members of the board, so that, because we recognize, most people who are part of this organization are active in other organizations. So whenever we get the new board, it may be the same, it may be different, but we work to make sure that everybody who's on the board can actually attend the board meetings. So
wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Daniel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel Tick. I've been in St. Paul since 2012, close to Selbydale, on the just east of it for a little while, and now I'm just west of it. So Ward 1 the entire time. I got familiar with Sustain St. Paul just in the past few months, so in the fall. So I've attended the last few meetings, joined the newsletter and that sort of thing, been keeping track, and then have gotten started to keep track of and submit comments for the infill study that's currently ongoing in phase 1. Looks like a good start yesterday at the city council meeting, or at least a start. And beyond that, just interested in hearing more about kind of the board role. I'm interested in contributing to the group regardless, but whether board membership versus just kind of contributing as a volunteer is right for me, and kind of where I am in my life and other demands right now. But definitely interested and passionate about the mission. I have a history in doing some more kind of clean energy and climate related advocacy work, and a little more at the state level. And as I've gotten more interested in kind of local focus, that's when I came across the organization, was really intrigued by what you all are working on. So happy to get involved and meet all of you.
Terrific. Thanks, Daniel. Jack, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jack Fay. I've lived in St. Paul since 1980. Have lived in the same house since 1985. Raised a family here. I live unfortunately in the wrong place because every board member seems to be from my grid pretty much. I'm not in Highland, McAllister, Groveland, but for you, if you're not in this community, it's all the same. These wealthy people trying to dominate in everything. As far as my own involvement, I've been to most of the meetings of this group last year. I'm also very active in the Matt Groveland Community Council in both housing and transportation. And I'm also on the city appointed Capital Improvement Budget Committee. So I've got plenty of opportunities to have my voice be heard, but if I could make a contribution, if you really want another person to represent the same white elitist families, only I'm not white, I'd be happy to serve. Otherwise, I'll stick around offering my own opinions on issues as appropriate.
Thanks, Jack. Good to see you tonight. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Chris Smith. I live in Ward 2. I've been a resident in St. Paul for 8 years now. I served on the Capitol River Council, District 17, and also I just finished my three-year term with the Human Rights Commission for St. Paul. I'm interested in Sustain St. Paul because I'm focusing a lot of my energy now on infrastructure. I want St. Paul to become more of a people-centered infrastructure versus the card center infrastructure that we're living with now. I live in downtown, so daily when I ride my bike, it's kind of I'm taking a huge risk since there's few bike lanes, and we just have the one bike trail that runs through the center of downtown. So I just want the city to be more focused on sustainable energy, but also an infrastructure that people feel free to walk or ride their bikes on and not have to depend on cars. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Chris. Galen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name's Galen Benschoof. I've lived in St. Paul for about 6 years now, and I've served on the Summit University Planning Council for, I think, almost 4. Unfortunately, the meetings of that board have conflicted with Sustain St. Paul. So I've attended Sustain St. Paul meetings and engagement wherever I can, but it hasn't been enough to my liking. And I think I'm ready for a little bit of a different flavor of community engagement and activism, and looking and invest my energies into a group that I deeply believe in and aligns with my values, and just curious about all the opportunities to get involved. I live in Ward 1, by the way.
Awesome. Thanks, Galen. Owen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, definitely. My name's Owen. I am born and raised in St. Paul. Moved around a little bit back in St. Paul, have been for a while now. And I'm currently living in Ward 2 over by Linwood Park. I was invited here by Melissa, and she was kind of like, hey, check this out. You might be interested in the board, see what we're doing, get involved kind of thing. Of course, she's a great advocate for sustainable commuting and everything sustainability oriented. And I'm a huge sustainable transit advocate as well. I chair a group in our work at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency that's focused on sustainable transit for kind of our internal employees. And I try to practice what I preach. So I'm a big cyclist, commuter. So I'm here to see more about the board and what you're up to. I haven't really been involved at all. So this is new to me. So thanks for having me here tonight.
Thanks for being here, Owen. Bobby, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bobby Scott, and guess what? I got an email from Melissa too. But I was actually already coming, so she didn't need to. So I've been to a few meetings. My primary interest where I've been involved is in climate, and I'm in my second term on the District 1 Council. I'm in Ward 7. Yeah, East Side. And we started an environment committee because I'm hoping that we can do some education about climate and recycling and sustainability things. So I'm just here to see. I was leading the St. Paul chapter of a national climate group, and I'm stepping back from that. Thank you, Joe Manchin. I couldn't stand the frustration anymore. So I'm looking for something that that might have a different flavor.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Bobby. Jen, would you like to introduce yourself?
She messaged me that she may not be able to. She's on mobile and also is unable to post and chat. So I can introduce her at her request. She is also a sustainable transit supporter. That term sustainable had been changed by some of us to include electric cars when we're talking about alternative transit, which is a word that we're trying to remove because it's no longer an alternative. It's now the new normal. Anyways, she bikes you around. She's not owned a car for the entire time I've known her and has biked something like, I don't know, 25,000 miles. Is that right, Owen? In her last 5 years of commuting, something like that. She lives in Ward 4. She's in the Hamlin Midway area. She says that I invited her. Yes, I did. And she would be, like all of you, a great asset to this board. And, you know, keep in mind, we're really super flexible in terms of interest of this organization versus joining the board. There's room for both or all, or, you know, choosing one over the other. So we're all glad you're here.
Awesome. Did I miss anybody? Is there anyone who hasn't introduced himself? Cool. I'm going to put the slide deck back up. I think you can all see it now, right? Excellent. Can I move the slides though? Maybe not. Well, that's oh, okay, great, got it. Awesome. We current board members are gonna take some turns talking through different parts of the slides. I'm gonna do what I often do at the beginning of the board meeting and tell you about our mission statement. This is something that we worked on this year to revise, to sharpen up, because we're conscious that it's easy for groups like us to get involved in a million different things and get distracted and fail to stay focused. So in an effort to prevent mission creep, this is our mission statement. Sustain St. Paul champions abundant housing, low carbon transportation, and sustainable land use in the city of St. Paul through education, advocacy, and political action to ensure a more just and equitable city for all current and future residents. So the centerpiece there is sustainable land use policy. Liz can tell you a little bit about how that started and where it's gone from there.
Great, thanks Luke. Yeah, so this group, I joined the group not quite when it started, but before it incorporated. I moved from Ward 2 to Ward 3, and I had been noticing on Twitter a bunch of folks talking about some sustainable issues, primarily around the Ford site. And that really, you know, sort of the Ford site, now called the Bridges, was really the genesis of the organization. And I can tell from the introductions, a few of you live in Ward 3, so you may have been aware of some of the battles, but you know, Ward 3 is kind of an interesting area, as Jack alluded to. I think it was the well, I won't get into the politics of it, but it's you know, it's interesting. And so you know, when they were trying to push through sort of the redesign of, you know, what they were going to do with that Ford site, there was a group that sort of formed that was called Neighbors for Livable St. Paul that were very active and vocal, opposing a lot of the things that a lot of us who are part of this group and who founded this group, you know, liked: density and transit friendliness and so forth. And so, you know, a couple guys and a couple women, you know, started talking to each other, and they're like, you know, we should do something about this. And it sort of spun out from there. And a lot of the early organizing, again, because it was very ward specific and it was around a specific topic, was really done like through household neighborhood organizing, a lot of house parties, a lot of like one-on-one talking to people, just good old fashioned organizing to try and get, you know, support for the Ford site plan, as well as have an influence on what was being discussed there. And sort of as that sort of effort evolved, the group decided to call itself Sustain Ward 3. And I sort of jumped in as we sort of started formalizing and helped, you know, write some of the corporate documents. And, you know, as the Ward 3, as the Ford project sort of moved forward, we recognized there were other things we could work on. So then switched to working on, I think the next big thing was actually the Riverview Corridor, which is kind of something that continues to come in and out, but really advocating for something, that made sense for the city, would tie into the Ford site and whatnot. And so I got very engaged in that, and really liked that. But as we were doing that, we also recognized that if, what we were doing was good, but it was something that if we just kept it focused on Ward 3, we'd be basically becoming a group, engaged in site fights in Highland Park and McAllister Groveland. And that didn't seem to any of us to be the best use of our sort of time, given the folks who were in the group. So that's when we decided to sort of rethink the group and sort of rebrand, and we became Sustain St. Paul. We opened up the original board was we had to have there were the balance requirements of the neighborhoods McAllister, Groveland versus Highland, and then we decided, let's try to get a balance throughout the whole city, but also recognizing that growth may take time, and we didn't want to, there are valuable people still living in Ward 3. So, change the name of the organization. The focus continued. We took on a number of other things. We got very engaged. I think it was mentioned earlier in the garbage fight. What is the name?
Tenant protections?
What?
Are you thinking about tenant protections?
No, I was actually thinking earlier, the compostable to-go ordinance. Actually, that was, we interacted a lot with some of the groups that Melissa was in. And so, a number of different pieces. We also got, I think Luke just mentioned that sort of later on, and I don't know how much of this Melanie is covering, so I don't want to go too far. We also did get very involved in the ordinance for tenants, the tenant rights. And I think some of the later accomplishments I'm going to leave to Melanie, but so you can get a flavor for what we've been engaged on. I will say that, in 2020, it was a tough year. We had actually kicked off in 2020, got quite a few new members of the board. That was when I became co-chair of the organization, and got some new exciting board members, did a board retreat. We were all ready and raring to go. And then y'all remember what happened in spring of 2020. And I'll be honest, it was tough to manage. And I think that, then further things, with the unrest in the city, and some of the tragic events that happened in 2020 during that summer, quite frankly, we recognized that sort of organizing around some of these issues was tough. And we actually sort of focused a little bit instead on, helping raise money and shift our volunteers to go help out at sites across the city that were needed to deal with the unrest. And then we kind of just laid quiet for a couple months and reorganized going back into 2021. And I'm going to let Melanie talk about some of our more recent accomplishments. But it was really, we had a good group, and I think 2020 was a tough year. 2021 added some amazing members like Melanie and Melissa. I think Luke came on mid 2020, but really great people on the board. James as well, who didn't make it tonight, but great group of people, and we continue to grow. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Melanie to talk about some of what we did in 2021.
Thanks, Liz. Well, I am just thrilled to get to talk about what we got done in 2021. Well, back in January, a year ago today, we launched our new mission and vision. And then in March, we launched a couple of action squads. And I'm going to give a little flavor around action squads. Action squads are an opportunity for our general membership to get involved. And that's during our monthly membership meetings. And literally as part of those membership meetings, action squads meet, and they use that time as working time to work on actions. And we had 2 action squads that we launched: parking minimums, which has actually achieved its goal, and zoning, which is a little bit more complex topic that's still ongoing. And that's all about leveraging the passions and experience of our members. And, being a person that was involved in the zoning action squad, oh my gosh, so much passion and experience. And I'm an engineering geek, and we had amazing technical discussions, super fun, super interesting. And then in July, we had a party. We rented a shelter in Crosby Park and actually got to see our members in real life and had a picnic. Hopefully we'll be able to do something similar this summer, if not earlier. And in August, we got to celebrate a major win. We were advocating for parking minimums. Note the action squad on parking minimums, and St. Paul actually eliminated those on August 18th of this summer. And, you know, really our collective advocacy of our members was totally a key success factor there. And then in the months of September and October, we hosted a discussion about rent stabilization, and we joined similarly minded organizations to endorse it. And as you all know, rent stabilization was passed by St. Paul voters on November 2nd. And ongoing throughout the year, we provided our members with virtual events that many of you have been a part of, and pathways to connect with their local government and to influence discussions about public policy. And then, you know, ongoing throughout 2021, and I think we all can say, as we look back on 2021, there was a lot of noise in our environment, a lot of news. And throughout that, this organization managed to still increase its amount of newsletter subscribers by 10% and increase representation across the city. And with that, who am I handing it over? Oh, should I continue? Should I cover this slide as well? I'd be happy to.
I think that was
Sure.
on your list. So yes.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, in my introduction, I shared I'm the treasurer, and yes, I'm going to be setting up a bank account. Melissa's been working on the website revamp, a social content strategy. Once we get a bank account, I think there should be some fundraising. I'll probably be heavily involved in that. And if any of you prospective board members have passion around fundraising, we would love to have you join us. And then we have a couple of advocacy campaigns. You all probably heard about the Rethinking I-94. And then there's the 1 to 4 unit infill study, missing middle housing. That's closely related to our zoning action squad. You know, continuing to network and expand citywide is really critical as we think about, you know, sustaining St. Paul, and we really need to make sure we're representing our true geographical diversity in our city and our ethnic diversity in the city as well. And we'll continue to host engaging meetings with guest speakers, and ultimately we'll be seeking to create more meaningful engagement opportunities for all of our members. And what is coming up next? This is probably Melissa's slide.
And just a point of clarification, you know, board members versus community members, the word members is there, and a lot of times people think, oh, dues, or I have to do something. For community members, you do whatever you want. You get involved as much as or as little as you want. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, because I heard that term multiple times that I wasn't sure what a member was compared to a member. So in the context of this meeting, of course, we are talking about board members, or board of directors, maybe a term that others have used and I've forgotten that. But we are seeking board members, board of directors. We currently have, with Liz stepping down, Elizabeth stepping down, we'll have 5 current board members, and we have room for 4 or 5 more. So we'll do our best to seek representation that represents St. Paul, reflects the goals and lived experiences of St. Paul. So we'll have a new board member orientation, and that is to be determined. We're working on that agenda as we plan these meetings. We do have a monthly kind of the public community member meeting. Excuse me, I take that back. The next line is the actual board meeting for board of directors. We host that for 1 hour, and it's currently the first Wednesday of the month. That, of course, like mentioned before with the general member meeting, can be flexible based on obviously the board members and their schedules. And we deliberately held this meeting not on a Tuesday because we know that a lot of boards do have meetings on Tuesdays. So that was a deliberate feedback loop. We had received that kind of feedback from members of the community who could never attend most of our board meetings. And so we do have our full member meeting, the community meeting that we've been talking about, currently on the 4th Tuesday of the month in the evening. Of course, that'll adjust as necessary. The outside work is really up to you. Of course, we're seeking board members who want to get involved in community advocacy opportunities. And even though I've only been on the board not quite 9 months, it's definitely been you lend your expertise, your interest, and your experience on the things that you care about. And we try to complement each other and support one another. And for such a small group with the 6 of us, it's been incredible on how much we've been able to accomplish with such a small board. And so we are so grateful for the potential opportunity to expand our board, not so that we do more, but that we do better. And like with other boards that I've been on, new board members aren't expected to be that sort of instant leader unless you want to be. Usually seasoned board members are mentoring and helping or co-leading with new board members. That said, we still would welcome anybody to get involved. We know that not everybody has time to be on a board or can't make it based on their schedules. And so there's a lot of things that you can do to work with us. I believe we'll be bringing back some of those Action Squad opportunities later this year. We had a bunch of great key speakers at the tail end of last year that we really wanted to focus, and they were bringing us updates like park development and the Hillcrest development, redevelopment. So things that are coming up on the horizon. So if you have a talent and a skill and you want to do something, we're not going to stop you. We would welcome your help, whether you're a board member, board of director, or a community member.
That's all we've prepared in the slides. We'd love to have a conversation with you all and learn what kinds of questions you have about sustain and some of the things that are on the horizon this coming year, next couple of years, and to learn more about what kinds of things you'd be interested in working on or what kinds of opportunities you see maybe. So anyone who'd like to chime in, you can just come off mute and say whatever you have.
A high-level question. You mentioned a couple of initiatives that were involved in having to do with I-94 and also the zoning in St. Paul. I'm wondering how that gets decided, whether that's kind of a reactive process to what's going on in the city, or can we be more proactive on some of these things? I guess the first question is, how does something percolate up to that thing where it becomes identified, we want to focus resources there? How does it get there? And second, seems like we're primarily reactive to what the city or the state does. Just wanted some input on that and thinking of what else we ought to be there moving forward to the next year.
Sure. Can I respond to that one? Awesome. Jack, it's a great question. And yeah, I can understand how it would appear that we're responding to things that we're reactive to things that the city or that the state Met Council is doing in the case of I-94. I would say that first of all, both of those projects, the 1 to 4 unit infill study and rethinking I-94, are part of they're happening because of some activism that's already happened. The 1 to 4 unit infill study is a result of advocacy that's happened over the years and a result of people on the Planning Commission finally getting the study moving within the channels of City Hall among the city staff. So our decision to work on it is because it's being considered right now, and it's central to our mission and as an organization to focus on sustainable land use policy. It's a key opportunity for us to jump in. And it hasn't entirely been reactive because we have been able to be a part of the process really early on. Before, like, we've been tracking this since before the city staff, the planning staff, released their official recommendations to the Planning Commission. And so all along the way, we've been submitting comments, inviting members to submit comments. Now, phase 1 is in front of the City Council, as Daniel mentioned. And in a couple of days, we'll be sending an email to all of our members, encouraging them to submit comments once again in support of the phase 1 amendments, and even to go to City Hall in person if they're comfortable and testify during the public hearing next Wednesday. So it's sort of a combination, a push and pull, I think, of participating in things that are working their way through the channels so that we can be really effective. And also, we would like, as you've suggested, to start teeing up things that are not yet going through the city channels, to be proactive and to push the city to do a study on other topics of interest to us. With I-94, it's sort of similar. This, in fact, actually in I-94, the activism is being led by another organization called Our Streets Minneapolis, and they have created a coalition with several other organizations that we signed on to about a year ago. They first released a letter demanding that the Minnesota Department of Transportation slow down and change the visioning document that they use to sort of lay the table for the studies and the technical work that they do. And now, in the next couple of months, Our Streets Minneapolis will be advising us and other organizations on ways that we can really ramp up our activism. Yeah, we want to keep on working on things that are moving through channels of levels of government right now. And as you said, we should be thinking about how we can tee up issues that are important to us that aren't really getting any attention just yet.
I guess I'm not sure. I like I get it because I hear about these issues in other places and I learn about it when someone announces something. I've been hearing about I-94 for at least a year, and Matt Groveland Community Council ditto on this whole infill study because simply, but I don't know how it happens, but it would be good somehow to have a group just brainstorm where are the opportunities. I'm not sure tonight is right, but just have a group of people sit down. Where are the proactive opportunities that are right but haven't yet formed, and then maybe pick one or two to drive. You know,
I love that idea, Jack.
I could toss out suggestions, but I would rather that people come in primed with suggestions. We capture them all and pick what we think are the most promising and likely to be addressed in the future. Just a thought that I would toss out there.
Yeah, and thank you for that suggestion, Jack. You know, and ultimately it will be up to the incoming board how they do that. But that is, you know, one of the reasons we redid our mission is because we felt like we were being stretched too thin, doing too many things. And then as part of our planning process for last year, it very much, you know, it has been, we have been cognizant of the sort of being reactive versus reaching out. And so that is something that, again, ultimately the incoming board gets to decide what they want to do, but has been done in the past at a board level, because we found that, trying to figure out, obviously, you know, we take suggestions from the entire membership, and that's sometimes how things get fed up, but it really, you know, a board sets the direction. So I would imagine that is, hopefully will continue to be sort of a process going forward, and whether you decide to apply for the board or not. I know you have great ideas. It would be something worth sharing with the board, because it is, you know, one of the things that makes an organization like this work is if we have not only active board members, but really active members as well. So either way, I would encourage you to work with the incoming, you know, whoever co-chairs are going to be and whatnot to bring those forward. But it is something, again, it is always a challenge, because we do get a lot of requests to, like, can you work on this? Can you work on that? You know, push, pull, but we made a conscious decision last spring, like, what do we want to work on? That's why we developed into basically identified two areas, came up with action squads, and approached it that way. So
yeah,
thank you for that question.
Does someone else have a question they want to ask or idea they want to share?
Hi, I have a question for the group. In terms of kind of focus of engagement and kind of what level of kind of city power to focus on in terms of advocacy, would you say like the city council is kind of the target audience? I mean, more district council level, because it sounds like you all, you made the comment about kind of wanting to avoid the site fight kind of issue, which feels a little more location specific. So is it typically kind of city council level, planning commission? what is the target level of the audience for kind of advocacy that you all envision?
Yeah, I can do a little historical perspective because it has been somewhat issue specific. I talked about the first two major projects that we worked on, and with the city, with the Ford side, it was primarily started with city, and it was advocating at city council, planning commission, but there was also a real targeted effort on that particular issue to go out and meet with district councils, because district councils are seen as influencers on these issues. Now, how much that can be done depends a little bit on the issue itself, the amount of time and energy we have. That actually took a lot of folks to get out there and visit, on the Ford site, every single district council. There've been other issues, Riverview was one of those issues that was as much county as it was city. And so some of the advocacy was actually meeting around, with county folks as well. And so it is somewhat dependent. I mean, we've been, I would say, majority focused on city council and planning commission, but have tried to use other, levers as well, depending upon the issue or who the decision maker is.
We also know that there's a need for just general education, because the one thing I hear, I'm a state employee, and whether it's an organization I'm a volunteer for like this one, or as a state employee, I didn't know about that. I never heard about that. And we've been, as much as it's not all that much fun to do it, but we've been posting on Nextdoor and in various community organizations that are a little out there, but they're St. Paul. And, these issues do matter to people, and people do want to know about them. And if you know about them, you can do something about them. Maybe people choose not to, but at least, we've done our best to try to get the word out about certain issues. And trying to think of one of the major, the parking minimums being one of them. People didn't know about us or the topic until we started to raise it to a huge level of community groups on Facebook.
For those who are interested, I'll just toss this out. I know that a lot of behind the scenes work is already planning on making Summit Avenue from Mississippi River Boulevard to the Capitol as part of a Metropolitan Council project regional trail. I'm not saying we should advocate for it, but this is a perfect example of if you want to be proactive on something that I know positively 100% is coming. This is an opportunity to get in the ground floor. I'm tossing that out now in that this is a real life example that the new board can choose to become involved in or not become involved in.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of an important piece of history I forgot to mention, which was these, and I'm not even sure, maybe Melissa remembers this, was the Save Our Streets initiative, which was a subcommittee within Sustain St. Paul that really worked hard on trying to push for better protections on Summit Avenue. So there's a history of us working there. It would say when we regrouped around in 2020, sort of that as a separate initiative sort of fell off. But, unfortunately, one of our board members witnessed a fatal accident while she was sitting at the bus stop at Snelling and Summit, and sort of pushed the organization to really, and did have an impact on some of the, initial changes that were made on the summit. But yeah, Jack is right. It might be a project, again, the board will have to look at about whether it has, is something they want to work on. But I apologize that I forgot to mention that initiative in the history recap.
Anyone else have a question or an idea they want to share?
I have a question, and this topic it's kind of geeky.
Good.
And also probably bigger than the organization. I can't figure out who deals with it. And because of my interest in climate, I'm also interested in building codes and things that need to be changed. In some places like California, they've got I don't remember the exact specifics, but requiring that all new housing be at least solar ready, for example. Or some communities have said no more natural gas hookups until, after such and such date. And, as a climate person, I just think we need to be more aggressive. And I've asked different people. I think what I have found out is that building codes are state level and they're overseen by multiple committees. And so it's really hard to work on. Because when I asked Russ Stark about it once, it was like, oh, well, we can't do anything.
Hmm.
You know, I can probably, because I do this, and it is, a lot of it is state level, and that's, you know, just, and I am just, by way of full disclosure, I am a lobbyist full-time, that's my day job. And so I'm at the state legislature and I work for cities in rural Minnesota, so very familiar with this. So that kind of thing is more state. And, you know, I'm familiar, one of the things we have talked on and off, you know, should we get involved in some more state initiatives and whatnot? And one of the things I've, you know, just because I do this, have reminded the group, ultimately it's up to the group to what they want to do, but there are a lot of statewide groups that do this. And unless you are really engaged in state level politics, it's not something easy to dip your toe into. And so the effectiveness is more at a city level. And there's also the challenge that we run into. I also do work sort of in the, again, because of local government in the energy field, that there are some things that, you know, requiring, you know, solar panels or whatever, you know, on things maybe arguably good for the climate, but can also cut at other goals that we have, which is affordable, you know, the affordability of housing. And so there's also been that, I think, the tension that ensuring that when we pick things we're working on, that they meet sort of all of the aspects of our mission. But, you know, the working on codes and things like that is important, but it's, yeah, it is more of a state level issue.
I will also say that I am the co-chair of the newly created Climate Justice Advisory Board, a group that's at the pleasure of the mayor under Russ Stark. And we actually had guest speakers at last month's meeting on that topic. So there's certain things that can enhance building sustainability without needing to change the codes. And so we heard a little bit more about that, and that's my day job, but this is an aspect of my day job that I'm very not scientific about yet. So there's a lot of elements that I'm wanting to learn, and I'm actually starting to bring together people from the different organizations that represent sustainability within St. Paul, you know, whether it's at the University of Minnesota or at the state level or climate justice or this board. I mean, there's just so much overlap, and why not work together? So there's ways that we can not work around, because I realized for once I found out that you can't have more stringent city requirements, which is normally allowed, but in this case for building code, that's not. Right. And I did finally talk to people kind of at the state level by saying it's too hard to piecemeal the what's required here, what's required there. And that's actually a really tough thing when it even comes to housing standards from city to city. And so some of the people who may be in opposition would say, if you can get statewide support, we'd have no problem. Now, I don't know if that's just a roadblock to make me, you know, go through different hoops, but it does make sense. And again, is that where we can put our efforts? Is that where we're skilled? Or are there other things that we could try to tackle, like what the suggestions Jack brought up? So
yeah, and I would just ask the question because I was hoping actually that somebody here would know something about it, which they did. And so thank you, because I haven't gotten, I have asked a bunch of people about it and gotten no answers before. So I appreciate it.
This is the first time I've heard the issue, but a couple thoughts immediately came to my mind. First is Russ Stark is absolutely the person you want to work with because he's in charge of sustainability. Rather than trying to do it requirement, maybe you could do something like a pilot program of incentives or rebates to builders if they do certain things. That would seem to be something that you could try at a city level to accomplish the same thing rather than trying to get a change in state law. That's just off the top of my head. Don't want to go too far if that's not where we want to go.
No, that's helpful to hear. Thank you. Other
Who else has a question or idea?
I have a question, but let someone else go if they.
Go ahead.
I don't, although I've been to a few meetings, when I went to, I joined in learning about the parking issue and not housing. Now, are there people that have worked on transportation and housing? I
I'm
mean,
sorry, I don't understand your question.
with, so like the Ford site, when you were talking about it, you talked about transportation, having more transportation options, that was.
I mean, in our work, like with that, because it was an entire site plan, part of what we looked at and talked about was the transportation. And sort of, sustainable transportation. That was why we worked on the Riverview corridor as well. Has always been.
Can you remind me what the Riverview corridor is?
Sure, that's the train line running down, or the proposed line running down West 7th.
That's what I thought, okay.
And so within the Ford site plan, sort of sustainable transportation was an extremely important part of it, but it is something I would say with those issues, ideally with a lot of this stuff, I mean, in parking, obviously, the parking minimums was, clearly a transportation issue. The more that we can do things that actually combine a number of the aspects of our mission, the better. I mean, the Ford site was perhaps the best example of it. And there's other projects that the board has been considering, and we'll discuss again when we've got the new board on board. Sorry, that's bad, sort of going forward. But yeah, transportation, sort of sustainable transportation is, very much what's Melissa just put some more stuff in there, has been part of, what we've been looking at. Again, how much it plays into it or not, depends on the specific project. Even rethinking I-94 has to do with transportation, so.
I lead the communications efforts and tend to pop into our group email. And I know that we're getting successful when organizations are reaching out to us saying, can you pass along this information to your members? Or can I speak at one of your upcoming meetings? And yeah, I was a district council board member. So, stuff like that kind of came up on a fairly regular basis, but that is kind of happening at an increased pace for us. And, for the infill, the missing middle study, we are reaching out to each council member and we're able to get a pulse on what a potential vote might look like. And not all of a sudden, this is not new. This is based on Ward 3 and the early citywide efforts. We have power and people are paying attention to us, and we're deliberate with what we do with that. And we welcome more help with that. And on that note, I am going to throw the application to the board applicant. That's also wordy, in chat. And of course, you've probably seen it. If you've gotten an invite from us, then you probably have seen the link for that. Simple form. If you have any questions or don't have an answer to something, feel free to fill it out. And I think we just have a couple minutes left. I don't know if existing board members want to say anything. I want to say thank you to Elizabeth Wiffle, for all that she's done to contribute to this board. And you inspired me to join.
Thank you. And I want to inspire others to join because it's a great organization. I'm just burned out. So not from this, just in general. It's been COVID. I want to spend all my time on my bike. So you will see me around St. Paul on my bike.
I want to ask, so we put the link to this board application in the chat. I'm not sure how many of you were invited to come to this by Melissa, or how many of you are already on the email list, but would you all be willing to just put your name and contact info in the chat so that we can follow up and stay in touch regardless of whether you apply for the board or not? We'd love to know more about what each of your interests are and connect for further conversation, figure out if there's some creative opportunity to work together, if it's whether it's the board or something else, how we can be proactive on starting up new issues. If you want to be a lead person on a new action squad or new focus area, if you've got friends or colleagues or connections who you think could be helpful in helping exponentially build upon the work that's going on. Thanks for that. We'll be in touch with everybody. The other thing to say is that the election will take place at our upcoming full member meeting, which is on the 4th Tuesday of the month. I can't remember what exact date that is. It's always the 4th Tuesday of the month, 6:30 to 8 p.m.
25, January 25.
If you're not on our email list or following us on Facebook or Twitter, I'd encourage you to do that so that you can automatically see the posting about the event with a Zoom link and everything, so that you can come. It'll be a virtual event, and run for the board. We'll try and send out a follow-up that mentions that information as well. Is there anything else to say before we sign off?
Can you remind us of the application deadline?
Melissa, what did we talk about? Ideally, we were hoping that people, I think, would get it in basically 1 week before, so that will give the nominations committee is made up of Melissa, myself, and Melanie. Will give us a chance to sort of like screen and figure out, depending upon how many applications we have, whether we need to do interviews or anything like that. So I think it was mentioned, but the requirements sort of to actually be on the board under our or to be eligible under our bylaws are pretty, I don't want to say loose, but the two key things is because we want to make sure that people sort of align with our mission. And so we require that you attend 2 meetings, but you guys, you showed up today, and if you attend the meeting in January, you make that, and then it's sort of that sort of belief and support of the mission, and we put that specifically in our bylaws because we didn't want a bunch of, as we call them, livables sort of swamping our board as they did with the Highland District Council. So it's, we don't screen heavily on that, but we do try to make sure that everybody who is interested in being on the board truly believes in what we are doing. So to give us a chance to screen all of that, ideally soft date of this January 18th. I'm not going to say we haven't had applications come in even the day of the meeting. You know how it is with community groups. So.
Melissa, if it's good with you, I'll offer that I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. If anyone wants to stay and chat a little longer about anything, but I think we can say that we're officially done with this 1 hour orientation session, and say goodnight if y'all, if to whoever's ready to sign off.